Posts, likes, and shares. Three major components of the phenomenon known as social media. Nowadays, it's constantly being used.
Probably about an hour a day.
Probably this is probably bad, but probably 10 or 12 times a day, go on there freshly.
Its impact is widespread, especially among those born in the late 90s, often referred to as Generation Z. An aspect of daily living that has its benefits.
I'd say a positive is to keep informed with everybody.
Just that, being able to take your mind off of maybe some more important stuff that is going on.
And its drawbacks.
When people are behind a phone, they can be a lot more rude.
I guess seeing somebody else's post and then getting jealous of it.
But it's hard to deny that whether good or bad, social media takes people on a journey.
Welcome back to another episode of Be a Pro with Rostislav Nastrov.
This is Alex, an average, everyday college student who uses social media like the rest of us. But the love-hate relationship he's had with the digital world has been just that, a journey. One that started years ago, as a freshman in high school.
I remember right off the bat, within the first week or so, I posted some things that I love. I think one was related to sports, one was related to basketball cards, which my grandpa had that I pulled out, and another was related to my pet maybe.
But the journey took a gloomy turn, as the downsides to social media began to sink in.
I would say in college, probably COVID summer, to be honest. A little bit before that, I noticed that it was just frustratingly fake and frustratingly pulling me in a way that was unhealthy. I was like, oh, you don't want to post yourself, you kind of, there are rules. And so I learned, and this is rules that I would follow eventually, have more followers than you're following, or only post once a week at most, or edit the content of what you post. You need to become a photo editor in order that your photos might look better.
Eventually, it got to the point where Alex wanted to make a change.
I was realizing the pitfalls of social media and establishing connection, because everyone turned to social media for their connection. I saw the glaring inadequacies of that and wanted to make a change in the way my life was lived, and so I did so accordingly.
But Alex's epiphany wasn't the only thing that surfaced. After making some changes, Alex realized a much bigger issue had finally reared its ugly head.
Recently, I've discovered that I have a dopamine addiction, and I think if a lot of people were to search their hearts, especially my friends, a lot of people would say, yeah, that's me too.
Dopamine, a hormone produced and released in the brain, allows for feelings of satisfaction and well-being. Alex says he's managed to handle his addiction by limiting his social media use, allowing him to turn to other activities to satisfy his needs.
When we aren't involved in high dopamine activities, lower dopamine activities are going to satisfy us. They just will. Seeing a sunset, that'll satisfy us. Eating a home-cooked meal, that'll satisfy us. Getting home after a long night of hanging out with friends, we will feel satisfaction.
In the end, Alex says he's grateful to be where he is today, and challenges others to find satisfaction in difficult tasks rather than social media.
I would turn that piece of knowledge into a challenge for you or anyone to get back to a place where those things which are hard actually satisfy, because they're not going to satisfy if satisfaction comes easy.
In Pullman, Ryan Wasson, Merle News 8.